A very warm welcome to all of you, uh, to the friends who are here in the classroom and to the ones who are watching this session online. Hi, Nikhil. So, first of all, many congratulations to all of you that you have qualified the prelims examination and you are gearing up for the mains examination. Now, today's session is about the mains mindset, and we are talking about public administration option. Now, there are a few realities that we first need to be cognizant of. You have very little time between the prelims and the mains. And in that, you have to do the entire general studies, essay, as well as your option, right? And therefore, if you will see, you will have barely 15 to 20 days to cover the option. I am not saying that we should be going in a siloized manner, that I will first do the entire optional and then do GS or vice versa. The idea is that in these 60 to 65 days, effectively, you will have 15 to 20 man days, obviously spread over these 60-65 days to look at your option, because you have other things, general studies, essay, a couple of days for the language papers and things like that. Okay. So we need to be very measured and strategic. We cannot think that, okay, I will start optional from the word A and go to Z. No. Because then you will not be able to complete the entire optional in an effective manner. The conventional mode I am talking about. Okay. So the idea has to be very strategic. It cannot be a siloized or a sequential approach. Also, the challenge with the optional is that while preparing for the prelims examination, there is a great degree of overlap with the mains examination when it comes to subjects, topics, coverage. Okay, yes, the treatment gets a bit different, but the subject remains the same. Especially if you look at the core subject, polity, economy, history, geography, science and tech, environment. It is this optional that you last probably touched upon 5-6 months back. And therefore, you will have to rekindle it. And that is where the mammoth challenge will lay. Okay. So today's session, when we are talking about the mains mindset, I'm not going to teach you a lot today. Rather, we'll try and develop pointers on that very mains mindset. And from the next session onwards, we'll be taking up the learnings. For every session, you will get a worksheet. Okay, that is found in the e-materials section in your portal for those who are watching this session online. And for the offline folks, it will be available online in your portals as well as we'll be providing a physical copy here in the class. Okay, so that is the broader idea. Now, when you look at the mains mindset, there are certain, key aspects that are there. Those key aspects are, like I said, that you cannot go from start to finish, right? In a conventional sequential sense, that okay, I will first do paper one and then one fine evening I will start writing answers. Okay, you cannot do that. You will have to take a very strategic approach when it comes to the syllabus division. But apart from that, also there are certain do's and don'ts, which I will come, on the syllabus aspect will come a bit later. But today the basic idea is what to do, how to do it. So if you see, do not read any new material. Do not. Do not pick up a new book, a new set of notes, nothing of that sort. You are going back to certain standard books and material or the textbooks only and only while revising. If you are getting stuck somewhere, only then. Because the mantra is fairly simple. Revise, practice, and enrich. And the more cycles you will go through this, the better it will be. Now, this revision and practice is also not in silence. You will have to do this in the light of the exam. If you see the UPSC, UPSC provides us with just two things. That is the syllabus, because UPSC notification comes, and there are PYQs simply because the examinations have happened in the past. So in this light, you will have to examine the entire journey on your preparation, because simply making revision and revision and revision and no practice is also not a very intelligent thing to do. Also, if you directly jump onto the practice without revision, you will be losing time, energy, and effort in this aspect as well, because that practice will be without any base. Okay, so that practice will be without any base. So you have to maintain a balance here, and that is where the breaking of syllabus in terms of that, okay, I will cluster my syllabus in a manner that I will take up one cluster and then revise it, practice it, and enrich it. That approach is better. You see, quantity has a quality of its own. You have 26 units in the syllabus, and those 26 units you cannot think that, okay, I will be doing this unit. For example, you have done 10-15 units out of those 26 units, like how? Okay, I mean, you have mastered it, but you haven't really touched upon the rest of the 9 units. Sorry, not 9, 11 units. Or you can write answers to them well, but not the others. Or you are not able to manage the time. Then what will happen? You will not be able to complete the paper in the examination, again losing marks. Okay, so while you will do certain units in a very good manner, you will leave the rest. That is again going to be problematic, because that won't fetch you marks. So be content with a balance, that okay, I have revised it enough, now I should practice. Now I should practice on the go. Make some short crisp notes if you haven't, for the last days of revision. Through this session also, through these classes also, we'll be providing you a handout come worksheet in the end, just to flag certain areas. Okay, so that you can give a certain more stress on those areas, and some of those areas I will flag just today. All right. So this should be your approach, because the mains mindset means you will have to start writing. If you are not well versed, don't write the full test style. Do 3 questions, do 4 questions, but make it a habit that daily you will write certain answers, because that habit, so that you don't choke in the examination, just like we used to call South Africans as chokers. Okay, because in every final they used to choke. Recently they made it big. Okay, so the idea is fairly simple. So that you don't choke in the examination, you have to keep that mental physical faculties of yours very well oiled. All right, so that is something that is indispensable in this. Like I said, quantity has a quality of its own, because the moment these initial days will pass and when the time for mains will come near, you'll start panicking. Okay, so to prevent that, it is important that we do some heavy lifting at this very instant. Understood that? Yes or no? Nikhil, understood? Anji, yes or no? Understood? All right. Now, stressing upon the fact that while we have a paper in 26 units, let me ask you, Nikhil, how many marks does paper 1 and paper 2 individually count? How many marks? 250 each. I beg to differ. It's not 250. It's 400. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, part A, part B, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Now, if you will see, question number 1 and 5 are compulsory, that are 5 into 10 markers. Okay. Question number 2, 3, 4 in paper 1 is 20 plus 15 plus 15. In paper 2, it is 20 plus 20 plus 10. 8 question, 50 marks each question, that makes it 400. It is you who's asked to attempt 250 marks out of those 400, with question number 1 and 5 compulsory, and 3 other questions, at least one from each section. Okay. So when we actually see this aspect, the units, how they are distributed in the exam, that is also a strategic decision. And when you will see the trends, because today is the mains mindset, so I told you this strategic approach, and we'll be talking about the PYQ trends and the score maximization aspect, and through that we'll be identifying certain thrust areas. You see the question placement, the marks that an unit carries on an average will differ, right? So the unit, what is coming up here, the ideas that are coming up as questions, and the marks distribution, and the strategic placement, and when you look at it in light of your own strengths and weaknesses, it can help us prioritize certain areas. Remember, I'm not saying we should leave something, but the idea is it can help us prioritize certain areas with which we need to do more. For example, if I look at unit 1, introduction, paper 1, NPM is a topic that has been asked very frequently. In the last 9 years, it has been asked 10 times. Okay, that's not a small number. 10 marker, 15 marker, 20 marker even. So that will make of a heavy portion of the weightage of that unit out of 400. And the placement of that, that set of questions. So These thrust areas plus placement can help you in the exam to choose better. So therefore, whenever you see the question paper, choose your battle. Do not go by answering every question. First, see the paper. Get a feel of it. Question number 1 and 5 are, without choice. Of course, you will have to attempt. But with the rest of the questions, earmark which questions you will attempt so that during the course of exam, while you are writing it, you are not distracted. So spend good 5 minutes on planning what you will have to do. Don't write anything. The first 5 minutes will help you calm down, strategize that, okay, boss, I got this. Right? And when you have earmarked that out of 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, which questions you have to do, because those topics are, those topics like the back of your hand, or you've prepared those topics well. Weigh in the pros and cons. The questions can be interspersed. If you think that you know them all, but certain questions you can easily strike off, I'm not going to do it. There can be a couple of questions which you see that you do not know. So don't panic. Like I said, the quantity is a quality of its own. The completion of the paper in a balanced, satisfactory manner is important rather than extreme highs and extreme lows. Okay, so this is something that is indispensable, because beforehand you have zeroed down what you have to do. So that will help you attempt the paper in a far more confident manner. Otherwise, if you will go sequentially, right, there would be a chance that you will encounter a stumbling block and you will panic. Remember, how much you have studied, how many times you have studied does not matter. Unless you are able to satisfactorily answer the questions on the paper itself, it does not matter. Even if you have prepared some units well and some units not so well, if you are not able to complete the paper, you have already lost the marks. If out of the 250 attempt you have attempted 200, you cannot really hope to get more than 50% in any case. Roughly, even if you perform well, you will get 120. Remember, at 55 to 60%, a student tops this exam in a net score. So the completion of the paper is indispensable. You have to complete the paper. But at the same time, maintain that calm, composure. And that will only come when you will eliminate the uncertainties. The more the uncertainties, the more the chances of you to falter. Okay? And God forbid, if you panic in paper 1, ultimately paper 2 will also get spoiled. Right? Understood? So, this mindset is very, very important, that you should not panic in the examination hall, and for that there has to be an SOP kind of a strategic approach that you should follow. Okay? Because if you are not able to do this, you don't know your strengths, your weaknesses, and if you haven't made a sense of the paper, this is not prelims, I will attempt this much, I will attempt that much. No, you have to attempt the 250 marks out of 400. Only then the chances are that if you are a more than average performer, a good performer, then out of 250, you will get 60%, around 140. And similarly in paper 2, 140, then you will be able to cross 270. If you are exceptionally well, you can cross 300 as well. But to break that jinx of 250s, which is considered as a score which helps you qualify, you will have to attempt the full paper. That is most important. So occasional highs won't help you. Occasional highs when it comes to certain topics won't help you. Rather, a holistic and balanced coverage is needed. Understood this aspect? Understood? Yes or no? Friends online, understood? Okay. Now, how do we do it in 15 days? Of course, the classes will help that we are taking. But apart from that also, if you will see the syllabus, if you think that I am going to cover unit 1, then unit 2, then unit 3, then unit 4, and so on sequentially, you might not be able to cover, or you might cover but you will not have the adequate depth and perspective, because the exam will need those interlinkages between papers and within the papers. So, to do that, if you prepare certain units in a cluster approach, that will help you. You can do so in program with the test series. Also, otherwise also you can have that cluster based approach to understand and cover the subject in a faster manner. Okay. So let me tell you how you can make those clusters. Okay. This is one way. In my opinion, this is a better way. But otherwise also, based on your own strengths and weaknesses, you can make certain clusters. Okay. So first, let me write down the units and then we will identify the cluster. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 units in paper 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 units in paper 2. So if I talk about paper 1, introduction, administrative thought, administrative behavior, organization, okay, accountability and control, administrative law, comparative public administration, development dynamics, financial administration, okay, public policy, techniques of administrative improvement, and lastly the, oh sorry, financial administration is unit 12, unit 9 is personnel administration, personnel administration. Now coming to paper 2, you have evolution, philosophical and constitutional framework, public sector undertakings, union government and administration, plans and priorities, state government and administration, district administration, okay, civil services, financial management, administrative reforms, okay, rural development, urban, urban, law and order, and significant issues. Now see, there are certain low hanging fruits, okay, which actually carry a lot of marks. When we'll go to marks distribution and the thrust areas identification, you will understand, okay. But the financial administration and financial management can be the first cluster based on identification. I'm not giving an order, okay, to it. Civil services and personnel administration can be the second cluster. Cluster would mean, let us say I will consume one cluster a day. Okay. Now, these are easily identifiable cluster. Now, if you will see development administration, the development dynamics, you can link this development dynamics in paper 1 with CPA, right? And along with this, you can link the rural and the urban development part. Okay. So that is the third cluster. Isolated clusters, because the units are big, I can give introduction, administrative thought and behavior as isolated single unit clusters. So that makes me 3 more clusters. Okay. Now see this. So this is 4, 5 and 6. Another cluster that we can make is administrative law and law and order administration. Another cluster that we can make is techniques of administrative improvement, administrative reforms, and the significant issues, because they are all related. Okay. Now, with respect to organization and accountability control, while there would be parliamentary accountability vis-a-vis finance in financial management, one portion, role of finance ministry, okay, fine. But you can link organization, accountability and control with union government and administration, state government and administration. Okay. And district government and administration. So that makes another cluster, that is 9. Also, with respect to development dynamics, I forgot to add, you can add plans and priorities. So that is your 9th cluster. So if you will see, by the 9th cluster, we have covered all the units except public policy. Okay, so let us make it the 10th cluster. Along with public policy, we can take a left out portion, that is the PSUs. And the 11th and the final cluster will evolution and philosophical and constitutional framework. Now, if you will see, we have covered the entire syllabus as per these 11 clusters. So this cluster based approach will help you cover related topics, because you see, while the papers are 2, units are 26, but the subject is one. For example, financial administration, financial management, you do read accounts, audit, budgets. Okay. Budget as a political instrument, all those things. So they can be easily clubbed together. And that is the reason that instead of thinking that, okay, I have to cover 26 units, think I have to cover 11 clusters, because that will help you. It's a psychological game. And because it has a practical return on investment, the utility part is huge. Now, what you need to do, you take up the cluster, and within those clusters, once you have revised the entire cluster, see the high yielding topics I would say see the high yielding topics a bit more. I'm not saying exclude, but we are looking at a balanced horizontal coverage, that we do a complete coverage, but at the same time, the pressure points, the stress areas that we can flag, because this will give us high ROI, return on investment, on whatever these 15-20 days you have. So you must be wondering, I'm talking about 11 clusters, but I'm talking about 15 to 20 days. Why am I saying this? Arey bhai, you will write tests. You will take the feedback. You will incorporate that as well. You will do enrichment, right? Certain clusters might take more hours because of the sheer size. Also for the fact that you are not well versed with that cluster. So, and also because of a chance that while you are revising, you are stuck on a point. So immediately refer to the books, but don't read any new books. Only the material that you have, jot it down either in the form of notes, and the books that you have, refer. Okay. So this cluster and high yielding topics, once you master them, you acquire a certain mastery over them, the chances are that your horizontal coverage of the syllabus will be full, but at the same time, based on areas which are there in the examination which demand that, you will be able to address them better. And all of this should be done in the light of examination trends. Should be done in the light of examination trends. Just like I gave you the example of NPM. Okay. So you'll be able to better strategize not just the examination, but the run up to the examination. I won't even call it preparation now. Okay, because the preparation time is largely over. Now it is just the revision, practice, enrichment. Okay, the revision, practice, and enrichment. And the more cycles you are going to come up with them in the light of this cluster based approach, the more means ready you will be. Understood this? Understood? Yes or no? Okay. So while this is the approach now, as per the syllabus, let me break down the importance of the units and identify the thrust areas for each unit. Okay. So be patient with me on this, because we are going to take up 26 units in a single shot when it comes to the areas that need emphasis. So first let's deal with paper 1. Okay. First unit, introduction. Meanwhile, friends who are watching this online, and here also you can raise your hands, and friends who are watching online can type in any queries that might arise. Don't wait for the last. Okay. So now, if you will see paper 1, introduction unit, on an average, and these are marks out of 400. Okay, marks out of 400. On an average, you have roughly 51.5 marks. So it is one of those units which carry most of the marks. It carries a lot of the marks. And within this unit, if you will see the NPM, the evolution, okay, Meaning, scope, significance. Look at the nature of the questions as well when you will compare the PYQs. Okay. We'll be doing so in the class when we'll be taking it up, but still. And then good governance, and then the challenges of LPG. A lot of you must be wondering then why have I kept the challenges of LPG as part of the crash course, as part of the program of our classes. The reason is that while as part of this unit, the LPG gets asked, this is the lower, going down, we are going down in the order of priority. Okay, so NPM is the highest, LPG has the lowest. But elsewhere as well, this concept of LPG is very important. The concept of good governance is very important. And that is why I've kept them. Okay, so as to provide a complete end-to-end coverage when it comes to the crash course in terms of the needs of the examination. But NPM continues to remain a highlight topic. Also note that questions on NPA and PCT are not very frequent. They are not very frequent. But Waldo, while being an NPA theorist, continues to be important. Because either in meaning, scope, or significance, you can use Waldo to supplement a view, or the statement itself could be attributed to Waldo, which is given in the question. All right. So, this idea, while PCT has not received much attention over the last few years, so that also tells you that there can be a trap, but it will not be the sense that the entire 50 marks will be from PCT. So, you can prioritize while going forward. Okay, in terms of when you prepare, when you revise, when you enrich. All right. Now, interestingly, look at the placement of the question. Largely part A. Largely part A. Within that also, if you will see, question number 1 definitely has one or more questions from this. And question number 2 is the most likely place. Question number 3 and 4, yes, isolated one question of 15 marker can be there. Okay. Rarely we have seen going beyond part A, very less in question number 5, barely 2 times in last 9 years. Barely 2 times in last 9 years. And question number 7, just 1 time. Okay. So these are the insights that will help you. So we are looking at largely part A, and that to a compulsory section. So it is indispensable. Understood this? Understood? Anji? Okay. Now, similarly, let us look at the unit 2, paper 1, administrative thought. Now, interestingly, the moment you think administrative thought, you are not able to move beyond Foley and Taylor. Because when you pick up the PYQ compilation which is there in the market, and most of it, let me tell you, is very substandard when it comes to the categorization. They've messed up the categorization in a big way. One, anything you take up. Okay. Also, even if you take solved PYQs, that is also no good. Because the solutions are terrible. They are more terrible than the categorization itself. So you will find that often when we get obsessed with Taylor, Fayol, Foley, because that used to be the trend. But if you look at the last decade, you will find that in this unit, administrative thought, it is the participative management that is ruling the roost. Also, Bernard, functions of the executive, our very own Chester Bernard. And then comes the scientific management theory and the human relations school. And then lastly comes Weber. This is the order. The participative management and Bernard are roughly same, 5 times each. The average marks of this unit is 48.33. Again, roughly 50. So if you will see introduction and thought, just the introduction and thought, they are making 100 out of the 400. That means good 25%. Got it? Roughly 100. Of course, not all of them will be together. Okay, some questions you can have options. But the point is, they are high yielding topics, high yielding units. You knew already, I know, that administrative thought and introduction are very important, because when we learn PubAd at the initial stage, we also lay a great emphasis upon them. But the point here is that within them, what is being emphasized? I know that while preparing, you could not have understood the participative management without understanding the classical and all those things. And sometimes the questions in this can be in comparison to classical. That is fine. But the point is, what is the thrust area? What is the thrust topic? And again, this unit is largely confined to part A. Only once in question number 5 this was asked. Only once in last 10 years. Okay. So the order is pretty clear. So while we can emphasize, oh Weber, oh Weber, oh Weber, but look at Weber. And more lesser the uh, uh, you know, post-Weberian developments as such. The Marxist, the neo Marxist, and all other things. But the point is, often while preparing, often people who tell you, because they live in dated times, they give you things which used to come in early 2010s and even before. While the reality of the last decade has changed. Largely part A, questions in question number 1, 14 times in the last 9 years. 1, 4, 14 times. So that means while emphasizing on this unit, in the compulsory question number 1, you are going to have a good strike rate. So that is also a part of strategy. Okay. And then question number 2, 3, 4, they are roughly evenly distributed. All right. Now, let us look at the third unit. That is the administrative behavior. 34 marks on an average. Remember, all these marks are out of 400, okay? 34 marks at an average, and you can do the total. You will get around 400 approximately, because I'm giving you the round figures. Precisely, it is 34.44. Okay? Now, in this section, if you will see, The theories of leadership, they dominate, while the motivation comes a distant second. Motivation comes the distant second. But what we read first? We always read motivation first. Okay. So now you realize the problem. Motivation is distant second. By that I mean leadership will have 7 or 8 questions. Motivation has only 3. And then come, sorry, 5. And then comes the communication and morale. Last is the communication and morale. Largely again, section A. Section A. So you can, by just these units, okay, just these units, evenly distributed in compulsory question, right? Then the majority of the questions are in question number 4. Okay. So if I gather that in part A you have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, these are 5 questions. Okay. And out of 2, 3, 4, you can maximum attempt 2 questions. Okay. As per the scheme, because at least 1 question from the other part. 150 marks out of 250 you can attempt largely through these units. Obviously, this is a very mechanical idea, 10-20 marks here and there. But the point is, look at the strength it is giving you and look at the topics within this unit which need to be stressed upon. Okay, so this mindset is needed. You will have to go with this killer instinct in the examination. This is not a routine examination. Remember, every competitive examination is an examination to fail. It is not to pass. While a university examination is an examination to pass. University never says that, we'll only pass 50 students this year. No. But the UPSC has a strength to maintain. It can only pass the number of students in proportion to the ratio of the vacancies. It does not have a blanket mandate that they will pass everybody. So if it is going to be a strict marking, it is going to be a strict marking for all. So this cutthroat competition that we face, this strategy is very essential. This strategy is very essential. All right. So that makes administrative behavior. Now, let us come to the next unit, that is organizations. On an average, 26.67. Again, I'm talking about out of 400. Now look at the stress. Look at the stress here. Regulatory authorities is a high thrust area. Whereas conventionally we think, okay, we will see headquarter and field, okay, we will see ministries and department. Then comes the systems and contingency theory. Then comes ministries and departments. And then comes HQ and field. Ministries, department, corporations. See, I am not predicting the examination. The idea is fairly simple, that we need to pay more stress on the high thrust areas. Okay, if the UPSC chooses to surprise us that it is going to give every question from the least thrust area in every unit in both the papers, then of course it is your bad luck and mine. But I don't think that will happen for all the units. There will be certain surprises, but they can be balls well left. Okay, just like we say in cricket. Again, part A, section A of paper 1. Also, there can be certain questions which are abstract in orientation. That means it will be multidisciplinary within certain units. Okay, but that's a rarity, not a norm. Okay, a question which you cannot basically pin up to one topic in a unit. It will be multi-topical kind of a question or a very abstract, broad question. Okay. Now, while this is largely the unit of organizations, let us have a look at the next unit, that is accountability and control. Now, interestingly, accountability and control, you will find social audit, especially in recent year, civil society. So the traditional aspect with regards to the parliament, judicial, executive is not getting asked in paper 1, rather in paper 2. So within this unit from paper 1, the civil society, the social audit, okay, role of media, interest groups. If you combine them, the civil society, voluntary sector in general, this is the highest. Okay, and then comes the legislative control, and then comes the citizen and administration. Whereas our focus, or generally the popular wisdom, is that you go for legislative, executive, judicial control. Remember, UPSC is going to test everything, but they will test it in paper 2. Okay, now again, this is where things start getting interesting. Okay, largely in section A of paper 1, largely. Okay, almost even distribution in question number 1, 2, 4, and 1, 3, 4, rather, not 2. Okay, but isolated questions in section B, at times in question number 7 and question 8. Isolated. All right. So this is the idea about accountability and control. I am flagging those topics that you need to pay more stress on. Understood this thing? Hanji, understood? See, all of these things are not new. You can actually derive these ideas on your own, but it takes a mammoth effort. Okay, and you don't have time. That is why we are here, and that is why you are part of this program. Yes, friends watching online, understood? Yes or no? Nikhil? Yes or no? Come on. Till you don't give me a go ahead, my friends online, then I won't move. It won't be possible for me to move. Reply me in the text section. Yes or no? All right. Now, moving on to the next unit. After accountability and control, we have the unit of administrative law, the sixth unit, 20 mark, just 20. Okay, on an average out of 400. And that too, and I forgot to add, in accountability and control, when you see social audit, civil society, etc., those things will help you in GS paper 2, governance and social justice as well. Okay, because in GS paper 2, that is also a major area that is asked. Okay, so you can hedge your bets in that. Now, coming to administrative law, 20 marks is the focus. Largely, the idea is that, okay, they will ask what is administrative law, or the dicey, or most conventional thinking is that they will ask tribunals and they will ask the delegated legislation. But the focus remains meaning, scope, and significance of administrative law. This is my hero topic or the thrust area. Okay. Then comes the delegated legislation, an isolated question on dicey, and then the administrative tribunal. Okay. There can be again abstract questions which are multidisciplinary. But largely, if you will see, again, this remains confined to part A. One isolated questions, one has been asked in question number 5. Okay. But question number 1 remains a sought after area for this. So introduction, law, thought, behavior, and this thing, administrative law. One question in the compulsory section. Okay. Now that is where after 6 units the tide begins to change, because if you will see, we have exhausted roughly 200 marks, uh, roughly 200 marks have been exhausted as part of part A. Now we will have to look at part B, the unit of comparative public administration. CPA, on an average 25.56 out of 400. Now the focus here remains what we think should be, that is the rigs. Rigsian models and its critiques, Agraria, Industria, Transitia, Prismatic, Sala, all those models. And more so on the critical appraisal of them. Okay? And very interesting aspect in relation to rigs is the post rigs. That is the current status. So together they make the mass of the kind of questions that are getting asked. So you see, they are largely on the conceptual plane. So new CPA, things like new CPA, the conceptual orientation, the criticism of the CPA, the ethnocentrism, the Western centric view, and what is the counter to it. Okay, so that is there. And then comes distantly the historical and sociological factors. Okay, and with that, almost parallel is politics and administration in different countries. And there can be an isolated abstract question covering more than one idea. Now, this is where the game changes. In the last 9 years, in question number 5, that is the compulsory question, largely section B, this has been asked 6 times. And then question number 6 again is an area where CPA comes a lot, that is 6 times again. And then question number 7 and 8 hardly a couple of times. So the focus remains a compulsory area. Okay, and the good distribution of marks. Now comes another twist. We are not looking at any question, remember, in the last 9 years in part or section A. Largely we are looking at section B only. Next comes the unit of development dynamics. Remember the present government, development, Viksit Bharat, Vikas, and so on and so forth. And this has received a lot of stress. In the last 9 years, the average is 40.56 marks out of 400. So I'm looking at roughly 10%. So in the first half, we had certain heroes: introduction, thought, behavior. Okay. In this unit, this is one of those hero units of paper 1. Okay, but in section B. Now, interestingly, this unit is a bit peculiar one also, so a bit difficult. On the face of it, it might not, because you will think development of administration and administration of development. These are the ideas. Yes, conceptual grounding is this. But if you will see here, the hero topics remain bureaucracy and development. I am attaching the number of questions. Okay, and this is why this gets a bit tricky. Women and development, self-help groups and all that. Again 4. Okay, changing profile of DA. Again 4. Okay, and the strong state versus market debate, impact of liberalization, privatization and globalization. 3. Now in this there is a catch. The catch comes that there were 4 questions which were abstract. By abstract I mean that they would span multiple of these topics. So a very integrated approach is needed. And again, this topic becomes a hero topic. Why? Because question number 5, you have had questions 9 times. 9 times. Question number 6, 7 and 8, 6 times, 5 times and 4 times respectively. So the even distribution and the even prioritization of this topic. Remember, a lot of interlinkage is needed. Therefore, the cluster when I talked about urban, rural and plans and priorities. Because of the abstract nature that is coming into the picture. Right? So this is very important. And the stress on LPG that I paid with the unit 1. Largely we are looking at section B. One isolated question has come in question number 4. But we are looking at the section B, paper 1, question number 5, like I said, 9 times. That means at least one question every year for the past 9 years. Okay, so pay attention while doing this unit. Moving further, next unit, that is personnel administration. Acha, Let me tell you again, with respect to especially units like personnel administration, financial administration, these units which have a great degree of explicit similarity with paper 2. Okay, questions are increasingly getting even India centric in paper 1. Okay, now here you'll be surprised that the personnel administration, which we consider as a far off unit, 40 marks out of 400, and that too the emphasis on administrative ethics and performance appraisal, not training and recruitment, but administrative ethics and performance appraisal to align with GS paper 4 more. These are 8 times and 6 times respectively they have been asked. Next is a distant training. Recruitment is not getting figured. Employer-employee relationships, 2 times. And then the career advancement, again 2 times. So you look at the order of priority, and largely again we are looking at section B. Question number 5, 7, question number 8, 9 times. 9 times. So that tells you that the unit is so well distributed. And a critical unit for part B, and you can do this and civil service in a cohesive manner. Okay, next, the unit of public policy. The unit of public policy, 22.22 marks out of 400. So a low hanging fruit, a unit which again contains a lot of models. Okay, rational model, incrementalism, mixed scanning, this and that. So again, those models are the focus, but equally is the focus of the limitations angle, the critical appraisal angle, evaluation review and the limitations, again 4. So together they make 8 questions, the models and its critiques and the limitations, because this is the core of it. Okay, but look at the marks, 22. So isolated 1, maximum 2 questions. Okay, and then the processes, conceptualization, planning, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, they are the distance third. Okay, largely if you will see, most of the times it is like this, one question in question number 5 and 115 marker somewhere else. So question number 5 and 8 many a times. So you can make the combination of this and the CPA in question number 8. Okay, isolated times in question number 6 and 7. Next comes the techniques of administrative improvement. Often students find, okay, because this unit seems very flat, there are just things that we have to learn, PERT, CPM, etc., etc. The times have changed, friends. Okay, e-governance is getting asked a lot, but not from a GS lens, but from a conceptual public administration lens. The maximum number of times, 8 times. Okay, this is techniques of administrative improvement. And with this, if you will see the next and the distant one is the things like MIS or CPM, etc. And after this will come the work study and work management. Okay. Interestingly, a lot many questions in question number 5. Question number 5, 7 times in the last 9 years. Okay. And question number 8, 7 and 6 isolated a couple of times or so. Okay. So you know what to focus on, and this will help you in GS paper 2 as well. See, the examination is one, my friends. Okay. Last but not the least, another heavyweight, easy unit that you can do, that is the financial administration. And when you will look at the financial administration part, you will find 38.89 marks. That means we are bordering 40. And most of the questions are on monetary and fiscal policy and the budget. 7 and 6. Then the accounts and audit, 5, and the public borrowings and debt, 4, and one question was abstract. But look at the weightage and look at the placement. Question number 5 mandatorily, okay, 8 times. Then question number 7, 7 times. Question number 8, 5 times. Question number 6, 4 times. So, in this sense, if you will see, this unit becomes again very important for the compulsory question number 5, and in turn in giving benefit you in question number 7. And look at the marks. Alright. So, that completes the financial management part. Okay. And that deals with paper 1 and its thrust areas. Next, we shall take up paper 2, but that will be after a small 10-minute break. Okay. Meanwhile, if you have any queries, Nikhil, you friends in the class, if you have any queries, you can ask them after we join. Okay. The session won't shut. Okay. It will just be on the way. So it will continue. Let's resume our discussion. So we have seen the trends and the thrust areas for paper 1. Any queries up till now? Any queries here, friends? Nikhil, anything that you got? Friends here, any queries? No? Alright. Now, let's move to paper 2. Now, when you look at paper 2, the dynamics would remain the same, 400 marks, but the units just got a bit, more. You have 14 units here. So that will indeed impact the marks distribution. 2 units more, but it will. Now, let us look at the evolution, the first unit. And if you will look at the first unit, on an average 18 marks. The thrust area remains the Kautilya plus Mughals. 8 questions between them, 4 each. And the so-called Indianization of public services, revenue administration, so district administration comes a distant last. The reason for this is that the British legacy part gets tested at many other places. One, because you have this union government and administration, financial administration, okay, law and order administration, district administration, the office of district collector, etc. wherein this British legacy parts get tested a lot. So that is why, that is the hidden reason why the exam is not testing this aspect here as part of this unit. Okay, so it is getting far more specific. And if you will look at the common positioning, that is section A of paper 2, the first two questions. The first two questions. Okay. Then comes the unit of philosophical and constitutional framework. Okay. When you look at this particular unit, again, we are looking at the 20 marks roughly. We are looking at 20 marks. And within this also, if you will see, the distribution is largely in section A. The thrust area remains the salient features and value premises. Okay? Constitutionalism and political culture. The bureaucracy and democracy and the bureaucracy and development debate has not been frequented a lot, because generally with aspects regarding bureaucracy, they will test either in development administration or they are going to test with civil services. All right, quickly, let's move to the next unit, that is the public sector undertakings. So these are small units with small weightage. PSUs again equivalent to evolution. Okay, and the maximum amount when we look at PSUs, again we are looking at 17.8 something marks on an average over the past 9 years or so. The common theme around which the questions are getting framed is the problems of autonomy, accountability and control. Maximum number of questions are from this section, and then the impact of liberalization is the last. The public sector in the modern India is at the middle level. Okay, but again, if you look at the positioning, we are looking definitely at question number 1 here as well. So these three units will definitely feature in question number 1, that is the compulsory part that we have to do, and largely will remain in section A, because you see the distribution is interesting. 20 10 10 for the optional questions. So one question they can ask there, 20 20 10, I beg your pardon. So one question they can ask there and one question here. Very rarely you will see a 20 marker coming. Okay, very rarely you will see a 20 marker coming. All right. Then comes one of the most meatiest unit, that is the unit 4, union government and administration. Now this unit, and if you will see the clusters that I have identified, when you cover those clusters holistically, you are going to cover 70 to 80% of the syllabus in a very interlinked manner, that too high yielding areas. Okay, union government and administration 38.89, roughly 40 marks, 40 marks. Okay, in this, if you will see collectively, the idea of executive, judiciary and legislature, the parliament, the judiciary part and the executive part, work functions, work processes, that is the maximum area. But another very important area that comes is the prime minister's office. Prime minister's office. and then the distant one is cabinet secretariat. Cabinet secretariat. Okay. The positioning continues to remain in section A. Section A. With some 10 markers, but definitely we are looking at more marks. So you will find that a 20 marker is something that we are expecting definitely from this unit. Okay. Then comes the unit of plans and priorities. Something that I talked about in relation to the DA, Development Administration or the Development Dynamics in paper 1. 20 marker. Largely in the recent years, the questions have been focused on machinery of planning and that too Niti Aayog. Highly application oriented questions, current affairs oriented questions. Okay. And then comes the concept of indicative planning, and then lastly will come the machinery of planning. That would lastly will come the process of planning, I beg your pardon, at the union and state levels, because the focus of the process of planning has shifted from the union to the grassroots level, the bottom up planning model, and that is why you will see questions related to that, isolated questions in the rural and urban development space. Okay, so when you will do this cluster in a cohesive manner, the chances are that you will be able to even handle those isolated questions if they may crop up. Okay, the placement, if you will see, largely no question in 10 marker, only question number 2, 3 and 4. So this is a revelation that for all practical purposes, we are not looking at the questions in question number 1 from plans and priorities, but largely section A of paper 2, and that too in the optional part. Okay. So if you do DD, because DD carried significant weightage, rural, urban and plans and priorities, this becomes a high scoring cluster. Okay. And that too, it gives you options. It will come in the optional part. So again, you will have far greater degree of flexibility in the examination. Next comes the state government and administration part. Again, a very high value unit, even more than the union, crossing around 47 marks, more than 47 marks on an average every year. Now here, interestingly, the center state relations, which you study as part of Indian polity as well, and the finance commission, these two things dominate. They have contributed 14 questions, 14 questions over the past 9 years. Over the past 9 years. And the thing that we see, obviously, governor is an important institution which will any which ways come in the center state relations. Isolated questions on governors have been 4. Those are different from these 14 that I am telling. So just this aspect, no chief secretary, nothing. I am not saying you should not study it, but the point is that it is coming like that because the nature of the question is integrated. The chief secretary will figure in the executive relations, okay, and the state administration. All right. Now, interestingly, compulsory question in question number 1 is there, but apart from that also you will find that the positioning spans to largely question number 3. That means we are looking at section A. Section A. Usually the questions are clustered. You will have questions like this: 3A, 3B from this unit, and 3C from some other unit. Usually the questions are clustered. Okay, so that is the insight. Next is the district administration. Okay, district administration since independence, a moderate, roughly 25 marks weightage, roughly 24.44 to be precise, over the last decade or so. Now here the core area remains the changing role of collector. So questions in and around collector, and the application orientation with respect to the modern times, that is the highlight. 7 questions over the past 9 years. And the concept of democratic decentralization, because here also you will study this concept in the rural development and urban development also, and this will help you in GS paper 2 as well. And then finally the distinct one is union state local relations. 3 questions, again a compulsory question, and question number 3 and 4, a mix and match of 20 and 10 marks. All right, next is the unit of civil services. A very important unit, because we clustered it with personnel administration in paper 1, good amount of marks, 32.22 to be precise, over the past 9 years. Okay, see here it is focusing on structure, recruitment, training, capacity building, which you studied there as well, but that was not the focus of paper 1. Okay, so more India centric aspect, more mission Karam Yogis, capacity building of civil service, reorientation, lateral entry, and all those things. So it is one of the most critical areas. 8 questions from this over the past 9 years. And then code of conduct and discipline, 3 questions. Remember, administrative ethics was a focus there in personnel administration. So combine it with code of conduct and code of discipline, 3 questions here. So not a bad deal, right? If you are doing there and 1 question comes here and you have done this, consider it as a good day. Also, this will help you in GS paper 4 and GS paper 2. The role of civil services in a democracy, GS paper 2, and obviously a lot in ethics, integrity, and aptitude. Okay, and the distant one is on grievance redressal mechanisms, right? Interestingly, here you will find questions in part B. So from civil service onwards, first 7 units largely in part A. Next 7 units you will find largely in part B. Compulsory question plus the optional one, because we are looking at so many marks. Okay. Next comes the financial management. Of course, we took up the idea in relation to the financial administration in paper 1, that was unit 12 of paper 1. Here we have financial management, 24.44 roughly, the 25 marks. And here interestingly, you don't find budget, account and audit being asked a lot. Rather, budget as a political document, applied questions, okay, not directly, and the role of CAG and CGA. amongst them 5 each, 10 questions. And 2 questions were abstract, which were, largely spanning multiple areas of financial management. Interestingly, again, these questions you will find in compulsory part, question number 5, and an isolated question can be there in question number 3. That means in section A, isolated 10 marker can be expected. Okay. But budget as a political instrument and CAG and CGA. Again, CAG and CGA is something that you will read in economics, you will read in polity as well. Okay, so low hanging fruits, you can score a lot, but the nature is application orientation. Okay, they are not conceptual, directly conceptual questions. They are somewhat tricky. All right, next, unit 10. Administrative reforms. Now, interestingly, you will find the weightage is almost equal to the financial management part. But if you will see administrative reforms, civil service, and the significant issues within the same paper, paper 2, you will find that they carry a lot of marks. Okay. So, when it comes to administrative reforms, more or less the questions will be in part B or section B of paper 2. Compulsory questions, question number 5 and question number 6 in the optional one. Okay. And you will find that the problems of implementation and major concerns dominating. So fairly easy area. What matters in this question or in this section will be the context in which the question will be placed. Because when you look at the problem of implementation, there are many. So it will take a prevailing reality and put it in context. All right. Next, a very significant unit, that is unit number 11, rural development. Now, if you look at the unit of rural development, we are looking at roughly 30 marks. Roughly 30 marks. Part B, section B, you will have questions in the compulsory as well as optional bracket. Okay, 20 markers in the optional and 10 markers in the compulsory section. Now here, if you will see, you will have decentralization, the concept, and Panchayati Raj institutions dominating. So the concept of decentralization we took up before as well. That is also very important. So that makes concept of decentralization very important for my preparation. Also, some questions based on programs and foci, aspirational district program, etc. So again, a lot of contemporary and application orientation. All right. So that is the most important thing. Of course, in this you will be using 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Remember, the questions can be hybrid. They can allude to the concept of democratic decentralization and 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Therefore, rural and urban has to be done together, because together you will find that they will make up a lot of marks. Together they will make up almost 50 marks. Okay, I'll take up urban development just after this, but the questions can be hybrid. Okay, so that is again a characteristic, but largely we are looking at the section B. Over the past 9 years, no questions in section 1 have been asked from this. Section A. Okay. Next, the urban development unit. This unit again will make for roughly 17.78. So the other was 28. So we are looking at roughly 45 to 50 marks. Okay, out of 400. And this urban also comes in part B, but not in the compulsory one. In the optional one, you will largely find C part, 6, 7, 8, C part from this. Two questions. Okay. And the politics and administration with regards to city management is the highlight area. Concepts like neo-localism have not been frequented in recent years, only two questions. Okay. And the features of the municipal governments is the second most important area. Right. Now comes the next unit, that is the law and order administration. Now this is a significant unit because it is giving you 32.22 marks. Okay. Again, the questions largely 7 and 8, part B and part C. Okay. And the focus remains public police relations. Okay. Police reforms. So all your Prakash Singh judgment, Rubero committee, Padmanabhaya committee, this committee, that committee, the issues that are prevailing. So again, application and analytical ones. And the British legacy part is the last. British legacy part is the last. No specific question on National Police Commission alone, as it used to get asked 10-15 years ago. So the point here is that while you are looking PYQs, uh, the sample that you are picking up, you should be very clear that in the entire range, what sample am I picking up? Okay. Last unit for paper 2, and this is again a very heavy unit. We are looking at significant issues, and you will find this is also very easy. Why? I'll tell you. This is 53.33 marks because it can cover anything. It can cover the political dynamics, the coalition, okay, corruption, etc. But you will find this is a unit that we are looking at as section B. Some questions in compulsory and the other ones, the 20 markers in the and an isolated 10 marker because we are looking at 50 marks in the optional questions. Now, it is the corruption and administration and values in public service. So all your Nolan committees and things like that, neutrality, impartiality, compassion, constitutional values, all those things, this dominate. The corruption and administration is 12 questions. So that means on an average, one question every year. And values in public service, 6 questions. So now if you look at this, we have been emphasizing on administrative ethics, right? We have been looking at reforms. So just corruption and administration angle has to be covered. And we have covered so much ground with regards to covering only few topics. Okay, understood. So that dominates. Disaster management, a token question roughly every alternate year. Okay, 5 questions. 5 questions, and that too you will find that it is largely around, let me just tell you where it is. Okay, I'll tell you the exact ideas with regards to this paper 2. So if you will see paper 2, there was significant issues unit. There was a question on disaster management in 2016, 20 marker. Okay. Then comes in 2017, 20 marker. Then comes in 2019, 20 marker. Then comes in 2021, 20 marker. And then 2023, 10 marker. Okay, and after 2023 this has not been asked, so that should leave you with a cue. Okay, so when it comes to the analysis in terms of the identification of thrust areas, we have completed both paper 1 and 2, and I have told you that how we need to see the clusters so that we can better prepare these areas, and within those clusters which topics to give more impetus to, because if the pattern holds, the chances are that we are going to get more questions on the similar lines. Yes, there can be surprises. The chances that there will be a drastic surprise that everything will go, turn topsy turvy is very less. All right. So, any queries whatsoever still now? Any queries? Yes, friends here online. Any queries? No? Okay. So now, when it comes to the agenda for today, we set out on the strategic approach, the PYQ trends, the score maximization mindset, which I have conveyed through PYQ trends, and the identification of thrust areas. What I did not mention as part of our plan, which is there in your brochure, is the crisp premier on answer writing. I do not want you to follow the template approach, because there is no template. I know that a lot many templates are being peddled, but that is of no use. Okay, because the examination is not going to be a template setting. The examination is going to be examination. It will have its own unique characteristics. So the moment you stick by this template approach and you go into the examination, anything that is in variance with the established idea will trouble you, will make you jittery, and will lead to not so good performance. So while you are talking about the answer writing, and this question would have propped up in each one of you's brains, that how should I do it, what is a good answer, etc. The simple answer is that a good answer is one that satisfies the demand. By that I mean that, let us say a question is on Wilson, and every time we will parrot the same introduction. Wilson is the father of public administration by virtue of his essay 1887, blah 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 blah. So it is not going to take us very far. All right. So, broadly speaking, whenever we are talking about the answer writing, let us go back to the basics. Okay. In school, what we learned that a good answer has an intro, a body, and a conclusion. Right? Obviously, in the examination, you do not have to write intro, underline, and then write body, underline, then write conclusion, underline, and then. The idea is that it has to be an organic piece. So, whenever you are looking at a question, the question will have a demand, and that demand will be shaped by the context and the concept. Okay, so there are certain pillars, that is clarity, relevance, depth, and last but not the least, articulation for whatever content that you are going to put in the answer. Now, this demand gets shaped by the context and the concept. The supporting ideas that we will be needing include the very concept, right? Plus scholars, example, and our answer will comprise of information plus analysis. Plus, we will be needing certain conceptual elements. Okay, the debate which are there. Why classical is inferior, why traditional theories were replaced, so on and so forth. Now, if you will see, the litmus test of a good introduction is, can I reverse engineer the question? If I am your evaluator and by reading the introduction that you have written, if I understand that you have understood the question, its demand and the context, then I get more favorably disposed towards you that yes, this chap or this guy or girl understands the concept, he understood the question and he knows what to do. So the test of a good introduction is that you can reverse engineer the question. If you have explained to me that you have understood the question, that is my good introduction. Then there is a body, and of course there has to be a bridge. Body is an exercise of prove and proof. So most of you have a habit of dumping your notes in the answer. That is not relevant. You will have to mold, typecast those notes as per the context, the demand of the question. So whenever we are writing the body, do remember that you are in a very implicit manner giving answers to three questions. That is what, why, and how. Okay, so largely what maximum of you end up doing is just giving what? This is it, this is it, this is it, this is it. But how? Why? Because that will make my analysis and reasoning. And last comes the conclusion, where you sum up the entire piece, something that you postulated in the introduction, something that you tried to prove in the conclusion, you say it with greater degree of certainty, positivity, balance. Okay? So that is something that is your introduction. So it answer should appear like a well-rounded piece. Okay, it should appear like a well-rounded piece. You open up an argument, you expand upon it, and you sort of collect it in a logical manner. Of course, the pabadish characteristics are needed. I am not talking about you being in the shoes of Shashi Tharoor, but the point is the technical words, the vocabulary of the pabad, the concepts, the thinkers, the logic, the arguments should be there. Okay, they should be very much present in an answer, and they should be A leads to B leads to C leads to D kind of a format, so that you have a logical unraveling of things. Otherwise, there would be randomness. Okay, so that is something needed. Remember, in the examination, you will attempt 38 questions, 19 each for paper 1 and paper 2. If just your good structure, okay, because I talked about clarity, relevance, depth, and articulation or expression. Unless you have clarity, that is fine to understand and comprehend the question, but what you write should be relevant. Wilson is the father of public administration, I know, but I need not mention in every question related to Wilson. The requisite amount of depth, that is the analysis, the reasoning, the arguments should be there, and all of it should be in a well structured format. Okay, so that is there. Remember, coming back to the point, you attempt 38 questions. Even if focusing on the answer writing skill will help you improve not much, half a mark on an average, you will end up elevating your score by 20 marks approximately. Right? I know a lot of you sort of grammar Nazi or mathematics Nazis will say that this is 19. I get that. What I'm saying is approximate. You know, ठीक है ना? So this is something that can be a big booster. You understand, 20 marks. Imagine the feeling getting 250 and then getting 270. Huge difference. Huge difference. And remember, I'm not talking about any unit coverage, revision, testing, nothing. Just by the mindset. And this can give you a huge boost. Not just it can make or break your selection, it can also change the very service that you may get after the results. The 20 marks is a huge. All right. So the writing of answers should be a very organic process. Also, there is a warning. The warning is that a lot of you will take up a paper and start writing. That should not be your modus operandi. Rather, I would say thinking plus writing at the same time is a big no. First think, then write. In your brain, empty your brain, okay, and pick up the elements that are needed or that has come to your brain after reading the question. A, B, C, D, E, F. Let us say these are the elements. Now go back to the question. Read what you have written or what you have emptied in your brain. Strike out things which might be true. Wilson is the father of public administration, okay. But I do not need to write it every time. Strike it through. Now what you have is what is relevant. So through clarity, you did the first thing. Then you found out the relevance. Then the depth. Okay, I'm going to talk a lot about D. D is something which is a cursory point. F is something that again is very important. Then I will organize. Then comes the articulation or expression. I will organize these things that, okay, first I will talk about D, then I will talk about F, then B, and then here I will append A somehow. So you have finalized the structure, the flow, the order. So you have a framework created for your answer. Sandwich this between a good introduction and a conclusion, and you have your answer ready. So for 1 minute, if you will take every time there is a urge to just jump the gun and write, take a 10-second pause and think. Don't think and write at the same time. First think, and once you have thought through, then write. This will not only improve your writing speed, your time management, but will also improve the quality of your answers. And I'm not talking about the subject, the revision, etc. What I am saying is just the modus operandi that you adopt while answering a question or taking up a question paper. Okay. So through this, you can eliminate a lot of inadvertent errors and end up getting that half a mark, 1 mark boost for every question. This is irrespective of the knowledge and the level of command you have on the subject. Some of you have very good command, some of you might not have that much command, even let us say not the whole subject, but on parts of it. Okay, so this will make your answers better. Also, often there is a question that whether I should write in points or paragraphs. That is up to you. I would prefer a hybrid approach based on the nature of the question, the content and analysis at my disposal, the marks, because those marks will determine the space and the word limit. Okay, so what you can do is you can take up certain points in a line diagram or a bar graph, okay, or make it a box like a case study. Refer that in the analysis part. This will not only break the linear character, this will also add value, because psychologically nobody is going to, first of all, physically nobody is going to count the words. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, nobody counts that. Okay, nobody counts that. It is all about the perception. So people who have corrected thousands of copies, okay, so if you'll bring in a copy, I can approximately tell you how many words it is. So I can deduce that whether you have overshot the word limit or undershot the word limit, or it is in and around the acceptable word limit. Nobody is going to physically count. So psychologically, as a human being, you won't count the words in the figures. You will only count the flowing text. So that not only breaks the monotony, that helps you convey a lot, and also in an interesting manner. It is appetizing to read such a stuff rather than a mere flowing text. Also, do keep in mind the font size that you write in, the spacing that you do, because perceptibly, if you write with very small font size and with very less spacing, even a 200 word answer would appear to be 300, that he has written a lot. Okay, and if you write too liberally when it comes to spacing between the words, small font size, spacing between the lines is more, then it will perceptibly, even if you have written 200 words, it will appear 150. Remember, a human being is going to evaluate your copy. Always remember that. And those are seasoned people, okay? Seasoned people, those who have corrected hundreds and thousands of copies. All right, they immediately can get it. Also, whether you are playing a bluff or whether you actually know the subject and know the question, that also gets understood by reading initial few lines. That is why I'm laying so much stress on good introduction, but that has to be followed with a good body and a good conclusion, because your bluff will be called out. Rest assured, you cannot bluff the evaluator. Okay, so these diagrams, tables, line diagrams will add a value. Also, they serve as an excellent tool wherein you can take up certain aspects in the figures, and that leaves you with elbow room for analysis to make, and therefore it helps you better express yourself, and hence better marks. All right, so we'll be doing the test series as well, and through that test series, based on your own individual traits, I'll be reflecting on that as we will interact going forward, right? So that was pretty much on the mains mindset that I had to convey. From the next session onwards, we'll be looking at the specific topics, and the idea of covering the syllabus effectively over the next couple of weeks or so, right? So I hope you had fun, because I had actually conceptualizing this particular session for you. I hope it proves useful. Thank you so much.